Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Shadows in the Dark. I am your host, Jeremiah Greer, and tonight we're going to have a wonderful show as we're going to be welcoming R.G. Absher to the show here very shortly to talk about Ghost of the Yadkin Valley. Now, R.G.'s been on the show in the past a couple of times, and we'll probably reflect a little bit on that as well. But it's going to be a fun show. We're going to have I think we're actually having a little bit of a ghost theme here lately, as we had Britt Griffith on not too long ago. We're going to have R.G. Absher on talking about ghost stories, and Patrick Burns will be on this Thursday as well. So a little bit of a ghost theme going on. We don't talk about ghosts a lot on the show, so I guess it's a little bit overdue. But it is going to be a great show, and I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I see our chat room is starting to fill up, so thanks to you all for joining us there. We really, really appreciate that. And, of course, to the archive listeners as well. We know not everybody can make it live, but we still appreciate you just as much. But it is going to be great. I hope everybody's noticing I've been adding a little bit more content to the website, so keep your eyes peeled as we keep adding more and more. And just a quick reminder, if you want to sign up for our show reminder, please do so. We send those out just a few hours before each live show, so that way you kind of get an email that says, hey, don't forget your favorite show's on, and that is Shadows in the Dark. Or at least we hope it is. But no, you can sign up for those, and we will just send them right to you. You will get an email confirmation. If by chance you don't get the email confirmation, that could be possibly that somehow your email server is blocking our our show reminders. So, not every one of them gets through. So there's nothing we can really do about that. We've tried a couple different programs, and that's just how it works sometimes. But again, if you want to sign up for our show reminders, please do so. One of the other things hopefully we'll be live in a couple days is a way for our listeners to upload photos, to send them to us, so that way we can finish getting photos in the family Shadows in the Dark family photo album, as well as other photo albums. We want to start some other things. Maybe you've got a picture of a ghost or a UFO or just something strange, unusual. Well, we want to start really encouraging you to send those in, and we're going to make that very, very easy for you to do so. And we were working on that today, but it wasn't quite working right. So we're going to work on that. Hopefully within the next few days we will get that launched, and you'll be able to do so. Well, I tell you what, let's get into some news. We've got some interesting news tonight, as well as some funny stories as well. And I really love this one. This one was sent over to us by email. This is pretty funny, but it seems that one southern Wisconsin homeowner is probably not in love with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. The famed hot dogs Wienermobile crashed Friday into the deck and garage of a home in Mount Pleasant, about 35 miles south of Milwaukee. I'm getting all tongue-tied. Police said the driver was trying to turn the Wienermobile around in the driveway and thought she was moving in reverse, but instead she went forward and hit the home. It sat in the driveway as if it were stuck in the garage Friday afternoon. No one was home and no one was injured, and no citations were immediately issued. Both the home and vehicle suffered moderate damage, which a Oscar Mayer spokesman says insurance will cover. And police hadn't been able to speak to the homeowner as early as Friday evening, so they're hoping to get in touch with them soon. I'm sure by now they have. And wouldn't that be a sight? Come home and the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile is stuck in your house. Well, how about this? I hate that I missed out on this one myself. Sounds like a lot of fun. Well, the feathers were flying as people participated in a giant pillow fight Saturday at the Central train station in Belgium. More than 200 participants, some dressed in pajamas, showed up at the station in the morning to participate in the event, which was organized by people using text messages and the internet. Pillow flapping battles have gained popularity and followings in major cities from the U.S. to Japan and Australia. Now, I don't know about you. Have anybody heard about this? I mean, it says, being popular in U.S. cities. I have not heard of a giant pillow fight. We have a Moonchild saying in the chat room there was a giant pillow fight in Toronto earlier this summer. So maybe that's something we need to organize, right? The giant Shadows in the Dark pillow fight. Shadows in the Dark giant pillow fight. That would be funny. We could all bring pillows with aliens and UFOs and Bigfoot pictured on them. Yeah. Well, we talked about this on the last show, and I really talked about it. I mentioned this story, and it seems that the Alaska sea blob mystery has kind of been solved. What sounds like a sci-fi movie was a real mystery. Scientists, initially puzzled, have figured out what the floating goo is, but they still don't know why it's there. Hunters and fishermen became concerned when they spotted the stuff last week. They all returned baffled, and no one had ever seen anything like it. There was only one thing officials knew for sure. It wasn't an oil slick. Samples were sent to the State Environmental Health Laboratory in Anchorage, which discovered the goop primarily contained marine algae. There's still a mystery surrounding the blob. No one along the North Slope has ever encountered this stuff in the ocean before, and scientists don't know what produced this bizarre algae bloom. So if you get a chance, check out the pictures. It's just this massive black blob right off the I think it's off the coast of Alaska somewhere. Very, very interesting. Here we go. Have you seen the pictures of the terracotta warriors? I mean, just like this huge army of them. Well, they're still uncovering more of these terracotta warriors, and just recently, archaeologists have found up to 100 terracotta warriors and an army officer at the World Heritage Site in Xi'an, northwest of China's Shanxi province, a month after they began a third excavation of the site. The life-sized figure was found lying on his stomach behind 4 chariots. The gallus was typical of army officers in the Qin dynasty, which was from 221 BC to 207 BC, and was originally painted in different colors. Except for its broken head, the army officer was largely intact compared with other newly discovered clay figures, most of which were found seriously damaged, some even fragmentary. Xi'an-based Terracotta Museum estimated the year-long excavation would hopefully unearth about 150 terracotta warriors. Richly colored clay figures were unearthed from the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of the United China, in the previous 2 excavations, but once they were exposed to air, they began to lose their luster and turn an oxidized gray. The 230 by 62 meter number 1 pit, which is currently under excavation, was believed to contain about 6,000 life-size terracotta figures, more than 1,000 of which were found in previous excavations. The Site Administration of Cultural Heritage approved the museum's dig of 200 square meters of the site, and the excavation is likely to continue if it proves fruitful. Most experts believe number 1 pit, the largest of all 3 pits, houses a rectangular army of archers, infantrymen, and charioteers that the emperor hoped would help him rule in the afterlife. The army was one of the greatest archaeological finds of modern times. It was discovered in Lingtong County, 35 kilometers east of Xi'an, in 1974 by peasants who were digging a well. The first formal excavation of the site lasted for 6 years, from 1978 to 1984, and produced 1,087 clay figures. A second excavation in 1995 lasted a year and was cut short for technical reasons. And like I said, if you've ever get a chance to really see a picture of these terracotta warriors, it is an amazing sight because they are life size. And I mean, the one they're talking about where they found the 1,087, you're looking at this clay army, just amazing. Now, I don't know if many people know there is a huge anniversary going on right now, and of course, tomorrow will mark the 40th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission landing on the moon. It was the 5th human spaceflight of Project Apollo and the 3rd human voyage to the moon, launched on July 16, 1969. It carried Mission Commander Neil Armstrong, Command Module Pilot Michael Collins, and Lunar Module Pilot Buzz Aldrin. On July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon while Collins orbited above. So I guess, a little bit of celebration going on in the space community as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of landing on the moon. But not only that, but we're looking, the 40th anniversary of the launch, the landing, the whole 9 yards. And you can definitely find some more info about that over on NASA's website. Of course, they've got a whole section that is dedicated to that. So, well, that's our news for today. And like I said, we're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to have R.G. Absher on as he discusses Ghost in the Yadkin Valley.
Visit www.shadowsinthedarkradio.com today to sign up for our free newsletter, join as a member of our forum, or browse our online store where you can find books, CDs, and DVDs, like a signed copy of The President's Vampire by Robert Damon Schneck, or the complete works of Dr. Gary Frick for only $20. That's 4 books signed by Dr. Frick that carry a great message. You will also find downloadable products like Mysteries Magazine and the Donald Kehoe interviews, DVDs featuring Charlie Carlson and Mr. Lobo. So go to www.shadowsinthedarkradio.com today and be a part of the show.
Well, if you've been a longtime listener of the show, you are probably familiar with R.G. Absher. He has joined us a number of times, as well as during our first 24-hour broadcast, which was out of the Haunted Smithy Hotel there in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Well, R.G. is here to join us again to talk about his new book, Ghost of Yadkin Valley. R.G., how are you tonight?
Doing great, Jeremiah. It's great to be on the show tonight, and excited about the book, and I'm excited about the paranormal conference coming up there in Wilkesboro in October, too.
Yeah, you guys got a lot of things going on there, which, personally, I've been to Wilkesboro myself a number of times, and always some kind of haunting going on. So it's a great place for, if someone has an interest in the ghostly side of things, because you guys have a lot going on there. And, of course, now you have your book out, Ghost of Yadkin Valley. And I want to ask exactly what area does Yadkin Valley cover?
Actually, the Yadkin Valley is born near Blowing Rock, not too far from the infamous Green Park Inn. So you start right off there with a haunted and a paranormal, character, and then of course it follows the Yadkin Valley down through Caldwell County into Wilkes County, North Carolina, and then sort of borders Yadkin and Surrey counties on the way to ultimately South Carolina, and then it becomes the Petey River further down in South Carolina in the Low Country, and the Yadkin River comes out in the Atlantic Ocean at Georgetown.
Oh, so a pretty good area then.
Yes, the scope of my particular book was really focusing on the upper Yadkin, from, say, Blowing Rock all the way to about Elkin, the Jonesville area. So I focused on the upper Yadkin with this particular, which is this area right here, that close by to where I reside. And there's a lot of interesting historical as well as paranormal instances that happen up this way over time. And these stories make for fascinating conversation and also good ghost hunt material.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the things that has really drawn me myself to the Wilkesboro area and up around Blowing Rock, Boone is the historical significance that is around there. I mean, we mentioned the Green Park Inn. I mean that place has been around for 127, 128 years. And the story behind it is amazing, and of course, Wilkesboro is famous for where Tom Dooley was incarcerated.
Yeah, that would be a great place to kind of start that story. In fact, I just got out of, my family was involved the last 3 weeks in the Tom Dooley show down at W. Carscott Lake that runs every summer. It's an outdoor drama, and it talks about the life of Tom Dooley, especially when the young Confederate soldier returned home to his little community of Elkville along the Yadkin River, became reacquainted with his childhood sweetheart, Ann Melton. And at about the same time, he also became acquainted with her first cousin, a young lady by the name of Laura Foster. And an infamous love triangle resulted in that, and jealousy and revenge and so forth. And then Laura Foster rode out on her father's horse in 1866, in May of 1866, and disappeared into darkness, and was found a couple months later with a stab wound through her heart. And of course, there was no forensic science in those days. There was no cold case techniques per se, and so it remained a great mystery as to who did it. Was there a conspiracy? Was there more than one? Did Tom Dooley himself do it, or was he actually innocent of the crime? So the whole thing is here in the county is a subject for fascinating study. And the Old Wilkes Jail, which of course you were there on the a couple of paranormal investigations, has been great for turning up paranormal evidence of the history of Tom Dooley there. In other words, we've had historically people have come in there who've been museum curators and so forth, and they claim that they could hear the sounds of Ann Melton and Tom Dooley struggling in the old jail as they might have back in the days when they were incarcerated there.
Now, someone in the chat room had mentioned or said a line from the song "Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley," and then you made the comment, is Tom Dooley a real person? And a lot of people don't realize that, especially if you're not from this area or from that area in particular. Let's say that because I did grow up right outside of Wilkesboro in the Kings Creek area.
Okay.
And yeah, Tom Dooley was a real person. The song is actually very accurate to how the story is believed to have taken place, correct?
Right, and there's a couple different versions of the song. One also connects to Doc Watson. His grandmother may have actually witnessed a deathbed confession by Ann Melton, as the story goes, in which when she was making this confession, reportedly was feeling an immense amount of guilt and reported seeing the flames of hell jumping out of her bedpost and that kind of thing, and maybe of having hallucinations at that particular point. And so Doc Watson captured a lot of the lore around that area of Stony Fork Creek and the upper watershed of the Yadkin Valley in Caldwell County and Wilkes there, and a song that he did that was handed down for generation really goes into the details. Some of the details are kind of a little bit gory even. There's a passage in there. I dug the grave 4 feet deep, 2 feet wide and 4 feet deep, and troughed the grave down with my feet. And so those stories too just really are kind of picturesque. And when Kingston Trio came out in 1958 with "Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley," not only did it impact locally and nationally, but it became an international favorite.
And now one of the things that it was made this such an interesting story was, I think, isn't it credited with being the first nationally covered murder case?
That's correct. It was the trial of the century in the 19th century. We've had several in the 20th century, that come to mind that were supposedly the trial of the century, and they were centered around most of those around a domestic situation, and this one was particularly inflamed because of the nature of the crime and the persons that were involved, and of course, and then the paranormal side to all that is the ghost stories that I collected in the ghost stories of the Yadkin Valley were that we have places out there in which people report experiences where Tom Dooley grew up and where the events took place, as well as where he was incarcerated in the old jail. They seemed to follow him around at various locations.
Right, and I tell you, I have to say from personal experience, investigating the old jail is one of my highlights on places to go, and I think we've been there 3 times. Correct? I think so. Yeah,
and what's amazing about that area down there in the Bell Witch story, the American haunting, there's a couple of commonalities that the area where the old Wilkes Jail and that site share out in Tennessee, north central Tennessee. Both of those sites are on ancient Indian burial grounds, and I am analyzing one of the EVPs that you guys got there, and I'll play back and listen to one of those. The female voice almost sounds like a Native American language, which would make sense. It would correlate because that whole area was the ancient burial grounds of the Cherokee and their predecessors.
Yeah, and we did capture some very interesting EVPs from there. I mean, one, you talk about the what sounded like a little girl, and it was difficult to understand her, and we kind of kept, maybe it was another language. Another one that we caught that really took us back was we had set it. I think it was Ann Melton's cell. There was nobody in the cell, and when we went back, which we even verified this through video, that nobody had entered the cell, and when we went back and listened to it, there was these 3 very deep, heavy breaths, and you could tell that they were, it was someone taking a breath, that this wasn't just wind. It was very distinct.
Yeah, and I did some research on that in conjunction with writing the Ghost book, and over the course of history of the old Wilkes Jail, in over 70 years of operation, it served about 10,000, roughly 10,000 inmates.
Wow.
Where the full range of human emotion is very prevalent in a place of confinement, and that whole area down there around the old jail also was a hanging site. It dates back to the Revolutionary War, where the Tory Oak was, and places of public execution are phenomenally, equated with paranormal activity. An example would be the Tower of London. Mm-hmm. But of course, there were Tories hung on the Tory Oak, and there were people hung in that particular area there as late as 1888. So that area was also a place of public execution.
Right. Yeah. Now, I want to just take a second to describe the old Wilkes Jail, because this is a small building. This is by no means some huge jail or prison. I mean, this, I seen the pictures of it before we ever visited for the first time. But then you walk in the door and you're like, wow, this is actually pretty small. And to think back to those times when it was in operations and how it was set up, had to be tough for, the prisoners as well as the jailer who lived in the jail.
Yeah, the Wilkes Heritage Museum, which manages the properties of the old Wilkes Jail, they're open to the public. People can come down and actually visit the jail when they come to the museum down in Wilkesboro. One thing that you're going to see in there is evidence of confinement. There's graffiti still on the walls. That some of it probably dates to the late 1800s, and it's still there. It was made by prisoners. There's you look around inside the jail cell, and the archaeological work they did there, restoration work, was able to place the walls back like they were in Tom Dooley's day. So when you're in a place like that, you can feel a sense of history, you can feel a sense of awe, and as you and I can attest, we felt a sense of the paranormal.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And but I have to say that it was something else to sit in that cell at 3:00 in the morning with all the lights lights off. It is a crazy. It's an unusual feeling because, like I say, it's very small, and the way that the cell or the building is set up is the jailer lived on one side with his family, and then there was 4 cells on the other side. Is that right?
Exactly, and. The Winston-Salem Paranormal Group, they did last year that we're up there, and they did the experiment with the compass, and the compass actually spun in one location in the area where Tom Dooley's jail cell was. We've also had, there was a reporter from Images Magazine doing a story about our ghost tours there about a year and a half ago, and he asked me the question, how they bring Tom Dooley in to the jail cell. And he was standing across from me, maybe 5 to 6 feet away, and I said they brought Tom Dooley in. Whole court records say in shackles and chains. About that time, between us, it sounded like somebody lifting and dragging a log chain with a ball on it across the floor between us. And like the reporter's never been back. He told other people he wasn't going back in there again, and that was really a strange experience. And what was interesting is the timing as I completed the sentence when it happened.
Right, yeah. Now, I have to say, I really want to come back down there. I haven't done as much investigations as I was doing back then, but still, there's just something about going to that old jail that, I don't know, it's an amazing place. It's full of history, and we've got some amazing results from it. So, I've got to come back and visit it, RG.
And when we do the Haunted Computer Paranormal Conference, the 23rd through the 25th of October, that Scott Nicholson is putting together, and I think you're going to be down for that. We will be doing hunts in the old Wilkes Jail as well as the other buildings in downtown Wilkesboro.
Yeah, and we'll I want to get into detail on that a little bit later on in the show. That way, as we talk about some of these locations, and then we mention where everyone will, what this is going to include. Everybody kind of have an idea because it sounds like it's going to be a great conference, and I was glad to see it coming to Wilkesboro, as a matter of fact. But another great place, is the Cleveland House. The old log cabin behind the old jail.
Yeah, This house was moved from a section of the county, Palier or Parsonsville, which was where the same location of the county where the stock car driver Benny Parsons came from, northwestern Wilkes County. It is also an area throughout history that has been phenomenal. It has been equated with the legend with moonshining and a lot of activity out of part of the county down there. But even prior to that. This area was where a lot of the struggle for the American Revolution took place, and the little cabin was owned by a guy who was a captain at the Battle of Kings Mountain under his brother, Colonel Benjamin Cleveland. And Battle of Kings Mountain took place on October 7th, 1780, and most modern-day historians believe it was the battle that swung the pace, that swung the advantage back to the colonial side at a time during the Revolutionary War, when it seemed like the British had the upper hand, and after they were the Patriots in the mountains and the hill country were threatened by the ultimatum by the British in the way of Patrick Ferguson, who delivered that message to the Over Mountain Man that either to rise to the king's side or face the obvious, and that would be having their homes burned out and their leaders hanged. And so when that resonated with the Over Mountain men, they responded and called Ferguson at the Battle of Kings Mountain, just across the North Carolina-South Carolina line in South Carolina there, near Blacksburg, South Carolina, October 7th, and defeated Ferguson. And this was one of the heroes at Battle of Kings Mountain was Robert Cleveland. He and his wife had 14 children. This is in the colonial times. People had huge families.
Right.
And in the 1980s, this cabin was restored. It was brought to the old Wilkes facilities downtown at the Heritage Museum, right behind the old jail. What's interesting, when we do tours in there, we've had school groups in there, and they'll say, who was the docent in there that's sitting by the fire? And they said, well, there wasn't a docent in there on duty. And they would describe a lady that would be described like a grandmother type lady knitting by the fire, and we've had people report that on more one occasion. It's thought to be Ms. Cleveland.
Right, and the rocking chair rocking, I remember, was one of the reports too. And I tell you, we swore we seen that thing rock at least once, and I know we sat there and watched that thing for 3 hours one of those nights we were there. And then, but one thing that I wondered, why exactly are the door frames so small?
Oh, okay. Well, this is another aspect of American history that you can witness by being in a building like that, because it was on the frontier at that particular time and place. The windows were small, and they had a large board that went across them that served like a deadbolt lock, and that was to keep invaders out, like the British loyalists who operated in the area, or maybe lawless bushwhackers. It was also used to keep warring factions of Native American groups that might be at war at that particular time with the settlers. It was also they had a problem with bears on the frontier, and maybe possibly mountain lions getting in the food or harming the people and the residents inside the house, occupants inside the house. So it had a practical reason, and you didn't want big windows because intruders could get in.
Well, what about the doors? They're short. I know that.
Yeah.
We could alone with what film footage we collected the times that we visited them. The Cleveland House, the old jail. We could make a whole CD on bloopers of everybody hitting their head on those door frames while we were in the Cleveland House. I mean, because we were walking around in the dark, and I hit mine a couple of times, and so did many others.
Yeah, one theory is the nutrition today has resulted in, first of all, a taller population than we had in the colonial period time. A 6 foot man, or 6'1" man in the colonial period was considered very tall. And in addition to that, many times these cabins, like the Cleveland cabin, originally had a dirt floor, so when they raised it another 8 inches up by installing a wooden floor, it shortened the threshold in the doorway.
All right. Okay. All right. Now, like I said, I'm very familiar with that one section of town because we've been in there. What are some other places out kind of out on the outskirts, not right there in downtown,
sure,
that are noted for being haunted?
Yeah, we have one place that's in the Thurman area, which is up near Stone Mountain State Park, up near North Carolina Highway 21. There's an old road that juts off of Highway 21 called Old 121. And there's a story up there about, it's called Gravity Hill, and I wrote about it in my book. Basically, it goes like this. You can go up there and drive on this road about a quarter of a mile or so, turn your car around, put it in neutral, and it appears that it's rolling uphill. Well, I gave it kind of the Mythbuster try. I went up there and turned my car around, put it in neutral, and sure enough, it appears that it's rolling uphill. The story goes, historical association with that particular paranormal event is that around the turn of the early 1900s, there was a family that a murder-suicide took place and wiped out the whole family. And when somebody goes up there, if they dust the back of their back windshield with like baby powder or light dust of some kind, that they'll turn around, the car will be pushed downhill, and they'll be able to pick up fingerprints of children that are warning the motorist to get away, to stay away from that particular location in impending peril. And I've had more than one person tell me that they had that happen in interviews I did when I was doing my ghost book. But I did try the experiments. I didn't put dust on the back of my windshield, but it does give you the illusion that you're actually going uphill. It's really strange.
Huh. Well, that is neat. Now, excuse me. Out of all the places that you have researched around the area, around the Yadkin Valley or Upper Yadkin Valley, what kind of percentage-wise, if you've got an idea, are these hauntings, ghost stories? And I'm curious because how many of them are rooted in, say, a tragedy, a tragic death, a murder, a suicide, opposed to a haunting that is believed coming from someone that died in natural causes?
Okay. Well, obviously, anything to do with the Tom Dooley story seems to be the former, fall in the former category. And of course, around the Tory Oak and the hangings there in the Colonel Benjamin Cleveland, their stories have been told there that connect to that. And the full ranges of human emotion, vary quite a bit. But in the Smithy Hotel, we get to the Smithy Hotel, there we're talking about preoccupation. Although it did have a tragedy there that is connected with the ghost story. That some of the ghost stories there deal with the preoccupation of a family historically associated who were in the hotel for over half a century, and so it kind of has a different association. Now, this is a really a strange story here that's been passed down from generation to generation. If the listeners tonight are familiar with the Brown Mountain Lights, this is yet another theory that's thrown out there. One of the paranormal theories that's been going around in a way of the legend. There's actually a twin poplar tree in Caldwell, just in Caldwell County, along the banks of the Yadkin River, a small stream that feeds the Yadkin River called the Twin Poplars. Well, it's actually two tree trunks that are joined together about 20 feet up in the air, and they go up to a total height of about 125 feet. This twin poplar tree does. In the year 1737, Cherokees and Catawbas had a battle at this particular site, and they fought to such a bloody stalemate they decided to treat or meet for peace. And so to do this, they symbolized their peace commitment by tying the two tree saplings together. Today, this tree still stands. I actually got a picture of it. I can take you to where the tree is. I mean, it's not really on public property, but people don't mind people going up there to look at it.
Right.
And this story was connected to the Brown Mountain Lights, the theory that Indian maidens searching for their lost brethren would go up to this particular site, become lost, and they would wander off into Linville Gorge and in the area around Brown Mountain. So when they see those lights over there today, one of those legends is the lights of the Indian maidens searching for their long-lost lovers.
Oh, wow. Now, have you ever witnessed the Brown Mountain Lights yourself?
Oh, yes, and it is pretty. They look almost like dancing pin lights to some people. Sometimes I've never actually seen colors, but some people say sometimes they appear to have colors in them. And there's some great sights for the viewers out there tonight. You can do a search on the Brown Mountain Lights, and you can actually see them. You can pull them up on the web.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I have to check that out because I've been up there a few times trying to witness them myself, and unfortunately, I have not been as lucky as others.
Right, and most everybody I know talks to said the best time of the year is it's like September and October when the humidity is a little less. For some reason, that seems to be a really great time of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that myself. Now, do you cover the Brown Mountain Lights in your book as well?
Yeah, yes, I tell that story. I like that story.
And it's I had the opportunity to go to the Brown Mountain Lights Festival that they have up there. And what is the area that they hold that festival?
Oh yeah, that's I think it's right in the vicinity, right there around Spruce Pine, or maybe Newland, somewhere around in there, across north.
Yeah. I remember they call it's a village. They call it a village, not really a town. Is it Linville Falls?
Linville Falls, yeah.
Linville Falls Village or something like that. Yeah, it's they put on a nice little festival, with the exception of the fact it's right there on an intersection, so it's kind of maybe a little dangerous, but
yeah, Linville Falls is kind of between Crossnore and Boone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's been a story that's the Brown Mountain Lights has been around for quite some time. The legends and the stories of it, and it's a huge interest to many people in the area.
And there's several other types of light phenomena that people have talked about. There's the Mako lights down in eastern North Carolina. There's another thing that has popped in quite a bit are accounts that I've had in interviews with people, witnessed them one time back in 1978 myself, is what I believe to be what's called ball lightning. And are you familiar with that, what ball lightning is? And apparently where there's some kind of charged static electricity, some kind of energy has to produce this phenomena can be quite frightening to see. And I've heard some interesting accounts, and people giving me firsthand accounts that they believe it was a paranormal event. I had very close to the area there in Stone Mountain. A guy recently told me a story that he observed some ball lightning there, and within 3 or 4 days after that, he had 3 different people that were close to him that passed away, and he described it to me. It almost sounded like ball of lightning, but he related to experience, almost a premonition type experience that he had, and I thought it was and he just wanted to share that with me recently. And that was actually after I wrote my book, but the story came in a few weeks ago, and I said, wow, it's a pretty, but what it sounded like he was describing to me was, in fact, ball of lightning is another one of these things that people have trouble, explaining what it is.
Now, they're bringing up in the chat room, have you done any research or anything on the Devil's Stomping Ground?
Well, we have an area here in Wilkes County in which is sometimes attributed to devils. There are several of those around. There's one apparently down around Rhonda, North Carolina, along what was Colonel Benjamin Cleveland, commander in the Revolutionary War at Kings Mountain. But he was the brother of Bob Cleveland we were talking about,
right,
that had his log cabin up in Peleer. But Colonel Benjamin Cleveland had a large plantation of about 10,000 acres along the bottomland of the Yadkin River, and he once hung a Tory, which was a loyalist British soldier, over there on his farm, called the guy's name was Zachariah Wells, and many people call that area there below that because when Zachariah was being hung, he makes a proclamation that if you hang me here, no blade of grass will ever grow here again. And so some people referred to that area there as Devil's Stomping Ground, and that kind of story pops up at several different locations around where and of course where the one you're talking about, which site is that?
I don't remember the exact location, but I know it's the one that is most notably known. I can't remember but it's the big circle. Nothing grows in it. Even heard of people camping in it, and they would wake up the next morning, they would be outside of the circle.
Now, one of the most bizarre stories that we had, they named a creek after it here in Wilkes County along the Yadkin River called Bugaboo Creek. And we recall a few minutes ago I was talking about Patrick Ferguson, who made the ultimatum, either lay down your arms or I'll burn your homes and hang your leaders with fire and sword. When Patrick Ferguson was shot and killed at Kings Mountain, his steed, his horse, fine Arabian horse of royal British ancestry, this horse was presented to none other than Colonel Benjamin Cleveland, who had his horse shot out from under him during the battle. And the horse was brought back to Wilkes County on the Roundabout Plantation. And for years, people have said that on a very pale moonlit night, that's a night that you would see a moon, but the clouds would kind of obscure it a little bit. It kind of has a pale look to it, iridescent look, that you would see Patrick Ferguson mounted on his white Arabian horse with his sword, just as if he carried a battle of Kings Mountain, and riding along the bottomlands along this creek, and later on they call the creek Bugaboo Creek. So that ghost story, it's almost like the headless horseman type of a story, a rider on a horse kind of thing. But that's a recurring. Many of the ghost stories that I've collected here in the Yadkin involve a rider on a horse. There's some of those that deal with Stoneman's raid in the Civil War, but that's another kind of story that often emerges.
Now, does it seem that some of the, you say, a lot of the stories, some type of rider on a horse, do you find a lot of these hauntings tend to be some type of war-related story? Civil War, especially. We're talking an area where the Civil War was very prominent.
Right, and what's interesting in the books that are out there, I know the Sharon McCrum book is wonderful on the bushwhackers. The movie Cold Mountain is another awesome book. And it tells what it does. It talks about the civil conflict, where you've got warring factions. You've got everything complicated too by people switching sides, and you get this brother to brother, kinfolk to kinfolk, neighbor to neighbor kind of conflicts, Hatfield and McCoy styled fighting that would occur in the back country, and so actually had a great-grandfather who was involved in that. And here's another ghost story that came out of that. They called the location where a murder took place involving my great-grandfather. Today that's called Dead Man's Hollow. And what happened there was he was after the Civil War was technically over. There was this guy that by the name of Tennessee Harrison that told General Stoneman the whereabouts of the local home guard unit that my great-grandfather was in. And then after Stoneman's raid passed through in Appomattox, a little bit later, about a month later after Stoneman's raid, and Lee had surrendered and the Civil War was over. Later that summer of 1865, my great-grandfather went back to get with another posse to catch up with this guy that turned them in, and they hung him in a hollow up north of North Wilkesboro here in Wilkes County. And they hung him an act of what was called slow hanging. They let him bob off the floor just a few inches, a very grisly affair indeed. And in that particular scenario, he would suffer longer. See, they would prolong the agony. It was combining execution and torture. And so Lewis was charged with murder, and his name was Lewis Absher, being my great-grandfather. He had the same surname. But he fled to Tennessee, and they had a loophole in the law known as statutes of limitations at that time. So he fled to Tennessee, and he came back 7 years later to nearby Allegheny County, lived out a ripe old age. But he was able to get off due to that loophole in the law. But that particular area, Wilkes County, has got a haunted reputation because of that story of the execution that took place there. And it was a bushwhackers affair.
Now, I've got a question from Ramsey in the chat room. Now, she kind of points out, as we were talking about the Devil's Stomping Ground, which we had someone in the chat room say that was near Fayetteville is the main, the most well-known one. But Ramsey is saying that there's Devil's Tracks in Taylorsville, which is private property, Devil's Stairs in Ashe County, Devil's Stomping Ground, which we just mentioned there around Fayetteville. And she's asking, she's just wondering, does the devil have something to do with North Carolina, or is it that way in any state?
Well, that's interesting. And in fact, the Devil's Walking Stairs in Ashe County, my mother's from that particular area, and when I was growing up, she would tell me about the story about Devil's Walking Stairs. And apparently, around the turn of the century, they blasted blasted that particular area there to improve the road and railroad through that little narrow gauge railroad section. And the blasting resulted in looked like stairs inside of the mountain. And there were some tragedies in that particular area over time, and people have said this devil's staircase is haunted. And one of the stories in my book involved a dog that was basically picked up as a stranded dog. He was basically abandoned as a puppy. And this moonshiner went up in that particular location in Ashe County where the Devil's, and at that particular area, it picked up this small dog and brought it back to northwest Wilkes County, to the community of Clear, not too far from where we were talking about where the Cleveland's cabin was and everything. Anyway, the dog raised up and he turned out to be a monsterful, incredible guard dog. And people were afraid of the dog because he would guard the moonshine still, and very effectively. And later on, somebody poisoned a dog or something, and sadly, which is really inhumane. And but what was interesting after that, for many, many years after that, people would come in that particular area and say that they would see a dog that would almost look like had charcoal, hot charcoals in its eyes, glowing. It would come up and frighten them and chase them off, and it looked just looked very, very scary. And they referred to this as the devil dog of Lear, and it was connected. It was apparently a dog that was raised in that area of the Devil's Staircase and was brought back to Wilkes County by the moonshiner.
And now Aztec Knight in the chat room is making a comment saying, basically a byproduct of the Bible Belt, everything weird is considered devilish. So, yeah. But, and one of the Scotch Irish that have come into this part of the country brought a tremendous amount of lore with them. And the German tradition and the Jack Tales that are part of the story and lore
that come in here. And a lot of it has to do with that particular tug against of good and evil, bad deeds and crime, and also civil conflict. So it seems like the more of that kind of stuff you get, it seems to accelerate the interest.
Now, it's funny because you were talking about the devil dog there, and I actually had in my notes about animal hauntings around the area. Are there any others than the devil dog?
Well, the horse that we have here in Wilkes County is the most famous. The ghost of Bugaboo Creek is actually named the creek after that because so many people reported seeing the horse. But I know in other investigations, the EVPs there in the old jail, I think one of the recordings was you thought maybe it was a grunt of an animal or a dog.
Right. Yeah, it sounded like some kind of grunt. We did not hear it while we were there, but it was a very strange sounding grunt.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I guess the only thing is, in any day and time, we could see plenty of deer out there, so we think they're probably they should be there. But occasionally, over time, people sometimes reported seeing something they didn't think they could explain. For instance, there have been a tremendous amount of people in this neck of the woods, as well as the rest of western North Carolina, that say they see catamounts or panthers, or you hear the term quote black panthers that people see, and that's a rare killer phase actually for cougars. But eastern cougars are very, very rare, and of course you go into Florida, you have the variation down there, species variant called the Florida panther that they actually still have in Florida. But people report even today that they see wildcats at night, and that's kind of an old thing that kind of combines folklore and tales as well, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have the same thing up around this area where I'm at. You get the sightings and whatnot. Now, one thing that I wanted to ask you is what do you know what the oldest reported haunting is in that area? How far back can you go, or have you been able to trace back to someone reporting that their house, their location, their land was haunted?
Well, here we've got the Cherokees and tales of wars that go all the way back to the French and Indian War. We've got the Revolutionary War, of course, which we've been talking about at length already. Then we've got what we also see in early history was the colonization of this particular area and the settlement of the pioneers. Because the Yadkin Valley, was occupied by Daniel Boone. And then after that, there was Christopher Gist that was actually on an expedition in the Ohio Valley, saved General George Washington's life by pulling him out of a river which was partially frozen and saving him on a raft, and he might have drowned, and that would have certainly altered history. But you've got some really key historical personages here, and many people think one reason this area is so alive is because it had such a rich culture of things that involved struggle, involved early struggle against carving a niche in the frontier. The Daniel Boones and the Christopher Gists, those kind of people who were Indian scouts and that kind of thing. And then you had all the civil conflict from the Revolutionary War, and there were raids all up and down this northwest North Carolina, southwest Virginia in the French and Indian War, in which a lot of times settlements were wiped out. And some of the conflicts of the French and Indian War that happened. There's a place up along the New River in Draper Valley, for instance, about a settlement that was pretty well wiped out during the time of the French and Indian War. But then at that point to present, you've got all the lore that took place in the Civil War, which is you could write volumes on, and then you've got the moonshiner incidents that happened here in the 1920s all the way up to about the 1970s, when they had one of the largest ATF offices anywhere in the country here in Wilkes County, North Carolina, which one time was known as the moonshine capital. So what we've got here is, I think, is perfect material that people tie a paranormal activity to, from the standpoint of the historic interest of it. And it doesn't always have to be historic, but I think that certainly seems to pop up in a lot of the stories, a lot of the things that happen here historically.
Right. Now what I was kind of really asking was what is the oldest reported haunting that you've been able to dig up? I mean, have you seen anything of like 100 years somebody actually reported that their house was haunted? It's always been something I've been always kind of curious about.
We've got some older houses here. In fact, between the 23rd and the 25th of October, one of the sites is going to be the Brown Coles house, which is a house built in the 1830s in downtown Wilkesboro. And on the back side of this house, this has been one of the older finds, I think, is that we had a slave quarters, and it's one of the rare, very few slave quarter examples left, still standing, as I understand. But when we've done some paranormal investigations in there, we've actually there've been quite a few experiences that picked up there. I know they've routinely people photograph orbs in there, and what's really haunting about the slave quarters is that there's charcoal inscriptions on the wall that historic restorers have told us were accurate to the period of 1860s. So here's something to me is rather haunting, because you're looking at something that was a dark chapter in American history, and we're able to actually visit that site and feel some of the some reverberations that are in there. So, I'm thinking that's some of the older ones in the older buildings that are still standing that are prominent. But of course, Cleveland sighting, Miss Cleveland, perhaps rocking in a rocking chair in the Cleveland house, would be older than that. But going back to the days of the Cherokees and the Catawba Indians up and down the Yadkin Valley, if indeed we're experiencing some things that may be tied to that they would probably have to be the oldest along the river, and oldest stories would probably be those that tie to the Native American tradition.
Mm-hmm. Well, RG, let us know where exactly they can pick up the book, Ghost of Yadkin Valley, because we're going to get ready to take a break here.
Okay. You can get it on Amazon.com and also through the History Press in Charleston, South Carolina. Those are a couple of good sites.
All right. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we've got the Amazon one linked off the website. And do you have a website or a website that you send people to?
Yes, WilkesHeritageMuseum.com. We also have the books there as well. But what that'll do is connect people up with the ghost haunts and the ghost tours, candlelight ghost tours we do there. And then, of course, we'll give them information on Scott Nicholson's Paranormal Conference too a little bit later in the show, I think.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, well, we're going to take a quick little break, everyone. When we return, we'll continue talking about the Ghost of Yadkin Valley with our guest tonight, R.G. Absher. You are listening to Shadows in the Dark, broadcasting live at shadowsinthedarkradio.com and Dark Plains Radio at darkplainsradio.com. The show can also be heard as a rebroadcast at ParaX at para-x.com and available as a podcast at Black Vault Radio at blackvaultradio.com and Planet Paranormal at planetparanormal.com.
Have you been wondering what gift to get that special person in your life? Then you need to visit Mountain View Candle Works, your one-stop headquarters for candles, fountains, specialty foods, and much more. Just visit www.mountainviewcandleworks.com. We make your candles with mountain care.
More than just another New Age journal, Mysteries Magazine provides a thought-provoking, in-depth look into myths, magic, and the paranormal, as well as the mysteries which have intrigued both historians and scientists from the beginning of time. So subscribe today by visiting www.mysteriesmagazine.com or pick up a copy at select newsstands throughout the U.S. and Canada. Again, that was www.mysteriesmagazine.com. Challenge your beliefs.
Are you wondering if the path that you've chosen is the right one for you? Or would you like to see a glimpse of what the future may hold? Tarot may be able to help you understand better the path that you're on. The cards don't lie, nor do they lead you astray, as they're a vehicle for messages from God, angels, and guides. Have your cards read for you by world-renowned tarot card master Scotty Roberts. To schedule a private reading with Scotty, visit www.tarotbyscotty.com today and find out what the cards may hold for you.
Ready for some rollicking adventure? In Scotty Roberts' book, The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare, join Irish Rabbit, Tam O'Hare, and his young squirrel squire, Horatio McNutt, as they journey through Scotland of the mid-1500s seeking a small child who's been stolen by the fairy folk. Crafty raccoon pirates, conniving noble wolves, conflicted royal foxes, and self-serving religious badgers all stand in the way as their quest brings them headlong into high seas action and supernatural intrigue. The Rollicking Adventures of Tam O'Hare is in bookstores everywhere and at barnesandnoble.com. This hardcover, lushly illustrated chapter book is the first book in the Tam O'Hare series. But hang on to your sabers. Book 2, Tam O'Hare and the Banshee of Ballyglenmorrow, is coming later this year. So swash your buckle and prepare yourself for a historically rollicking, swaggeringly supernatural adventure. Visit TamO'Hare.com to learn more. You'll never trust a raccoon with a sword again.
Hello everybody, this is Mr. G from the World Paranormal Society and from Haunt the Hunters on DarkPlanesRadio.com. I would like to tell you about a website. It's called TreasureForAllUSA.com, where I got everything from knickknacks to complete DVR systems. A place where you can shop for everything and everything, and if we don't have it, I'll find it for you. That's again, TreasureForAllUSA.com, everything from DVR systems, TV sets, knickknacks, and gifts for loved ones. Come check it out, TreasureForAllUSA.com. You won't be disappointed.
All right, tonight we're talking with R.G. Absher, and where we've been discussing ghost stories around the Yadkin Valley area, and R.G. has just recently put out a book that focuses on this. It's his newest book. Well, R.G., is this your only book?
Yeah, this is my only actual book. And the way this started was that in 2004, 2005, about 4 or 5 years ago, depending on how you count it, I started doing research on the ghost stories of the area, along the Yadkin and also in around the Wilkesboros, and I put a newspaper article in the paper, kind of putting the word out for stories, and what started with a half a dozen stories wound up being a pretty thick notebook, and so we put together the candlelight tours downtown, in which our goal was to mix history and the ghost stories together, and over time the collection and the need, I think, to share that collection with a lot of folks has resulted in the book, and that's how it happened, really.
All right, and now the ghost tour down there is a very popular tour. I mean, it's not just a small time little thing for you guys. I know a lot of people show up for this.
Yeah, we've had on a good night we'll have somewhere between 100 and 150. Some nights we've had as high as 200 people show up for ghost tours, and what we do is we dress up in colonial period outfits, and we carry candle lanterns through town, and we go into several of the buildings, including the Old Wilkes Jail and the Smithy Hotel, and we also in the tour at the town cemetery, which dates all the way back to the Revolutionary War. It's got slave graves in it. It's got people that fought in the war between the states in it. And it's a very interesting cemetery with a lot of lore. So we do a walking tour. It lasts about an hour and 20 minutes, and they've been immensely popular. And we kept the cost down on these things too. It's carried out by the Wilkes Heritage Museum. When we kept the cost down for $5 a person, and under six, it's free.
Mm-hmm. And it's a great tour. I've actually done it a few times myself, and I've really enjoyed it. Y'all do a fantastic job with it, by the way.
Thank you.
So, now, one other thing I wanted to ask you, I just kind of get a little off topic here, away from ghosts just for a few minutes, and I don't know if you've done research into this or not. What about cryptids and monsters? What kind of have you heard any reports of things like that?
Well, there again, the most familiar one we get around here has to do with wildcats, cougars, panthers, except mountain lions.
Right.
We've not actually, to my knowledge, anybody's reported anything like, ape-like creatures in this particular area here. Although it's surrounding areas, there's reports, where people have had that happen, and I guess in the United States, the most famous ones have come out on the West Coast, but also in other sections of the country, I think they popped up too. Because I've watched Monster Quest and some of the related types of programming that they have on the History Channel, and it's really fascinating. I've been to the old country in Ireland, England, and Scotland, and you've got the Loch Ness Monster over there, and of course there's a variant to that in Canada, that they have their own tale there of a sighting, and other locations where people spotted things they can't explain, and whether it might be some type of a species that escaped through time and did not become extinct, and shows up in really unusual, very isolated but rare type sightings, and where people have seen these things. It's an amazing thing to think about.
Yeah, it is. And living, in this area of mountains and that a lot of forest and things, you would, you'd think there would be reports of some strange animals that people were, seeing. So just kind of curious about that.
What's interesting is that the independent, when people find, just as we do the research on ghost stories, when I get independent findings of the same story, the interest level kind of accelerates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, someone was asking in the chat room, and we'll go ahead and let's put it out there again. Where is Ghost of Yadkin Valley available again?
The Ghost of the Yadkin Valley? Amazon.com. It's all, and also for the History Press, you can do a search on that out of Charleston, South Carolina, and it'll come right up too. So those two are the History Press and Amazon.com are two really easy ways to order the book.
All right, so there we go. Amazon.com. They were asking there in the chat room, so that way they'll get that information.
And the title of the book is Ghost of the Yadkin Valley.
I keep leaving of the out, don't I? Or I just keep saying Ghost of Yadkin Valley. Yes, Ghost of the Yadkin Valley. Now, RG, I'm curious about your own experiences. Have you yourself had, besides, we mentioned, hearing the chain in the old jail, the sound of a chain. Have you had any other experiences besides that one?
Well, actually I have. And the first one, in fact, I talk about this account in the book, happened when I was in high school in the 1970s. And it happened on a hayride. I went to school in Taylorsville, North Carolina. I heard you mention that area a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. Alexander Central High School, and the English department went on a hayride on a mountain one Halloween night. It's known as Barrett's Mountain. So we went up there, and everything was really kind of carefree and nice. That evening, you could smell the sort of the burnt smell. You smell the fall of the year. Remember that. A few of the kids had guitars on the back of the hay wagons that they were strumming and playing on the way to the top of the mountain. And somebody mentioned that night, hey, maybe some paranormal activity would happen up there. But anyway, when we got up to the top of the mountain, we had the typical hot dog, weenie, and marshmallow roast, and we ended up around a large bonfire telling stories about 90-some kids and chaperones and teachers. And eventually somebody got around to asking, well, let's do a seance. And out of 90 people, for some reason, I was picked as the person to lead the whole group in the seance. So I bought into it. And they took a red picnic tablecloth, I remember, and made a cape out of it, and took a towel and made a turban out of it. And first thing you know, I was leading the group in a seance there. We started calling up everybody from the town drunk to the to the other people, who had disappeared or died in the area, and then eventually to even ex-presidents of the United States. And we amongst those we called up was Abraham Lincoln. I remember that distinctly. But when we got into that, what was really strange, the night was really crystal clear. There were stars in the sky, and what really changed so dramatically within the time that we started the seance, within about 10 minutes, the wind started howling in the treetops up on this mountain and just moaning. It was really loud, moaning wind, and the most severe thunderstorm I think I've ever been in hit that particular just a few minutes later. And kids scattered to hay wagons. We rode down the mountain. And one student actually had a panic attack, and they had to call the emergency medical folks in to check on that youngster when we got back to the school. And everybody was soaked from head to toe when we got back. But everybody that was there that night was convinced it was something very, very, very strange, and maybe perhaps we went someplace that we wish we hadn't gone after we did the seance. So there you go. I had an experience early on, and I had some other ones that happened later than that. I stayed in a farmhouse down in Georgia in 1978, and I believe to this day it was the very classic scenario of paranormal activity. People refer to the haunted house in that particular. And so I've had those are a couple that have come to mind.
Well, can you share a couple of those with us?
Sure, I sure will. There was a farmhouse down in Georgia. I was working as a park ranger for the Corps of Engineers. Went to work down in 1978, and a friend of mine that was a student at Clemson, and I was a student at NC State. We decided to go in and rent this Victorian-style farmhouse. And remember, we drove up in the yard. The realtor was standing out in the yard, and we just couldn't believe this place. It had a wraparound porch. It was a Victorian style. It had a red tin roof. It had a couple of big chinaberry trees in the front yard, and most of all, it was right on the shore of Hartwell Lake, and so we could be down there in the lake in just a few minutes, cooling off. And so we definitely wanted to get into this house. And so at the end of the conversation with the realtor, we met her there in the driveway, and she said, "This is one thing I want to tell you that you guys ought to know about. I don't think you'll mind, because you guys seem to be pretty. I don't think you'd be afraid of much, but some people report hearing things at night in the house, and have some. But I think it's just an old house and it's cooling off, et cetera, et cetera." So said, we told her, said, "No, it won't bother us, and we'll go ahead and take it." So we hadn't been in the house very long, and things started to happen. We would be in the house, especially right before bedtime, and Dan, who was my roommate, was down the hall. It's a big farmhouse, had about eight rooms in it, 4 upstairs, 4 downstairs, and we would hear things moving, like them moving around the attic and that kind of thing. Well, I did buy the idea that it's just a house cooling off or whatever. It's just house noises. Mm-hmm. But over time, what happened was this intensified. They got louder and more severe, and we started noticing the next morning, a lot of time in the house, that pictures would be askew on the wall. We would have large pieces like chandeliers that would be tilted or out of alignment. You might have a candle holder that was on a mantle that had fallen to the floor during the night, or large heavy objects that were on a table or dresser that would be on the floor the next morning. And we started knowing this was happening every night, and it seemed to correlate the time of the activity. We would hear sounds. One particular night we were in this old farmhouse. We were laying there just drifting off. He was down the room, and the other room down the hall, and heard what sounded to me like almost like a man's voice, very low tones, and what I thought would be kind of like a demonic chant. It's the only way I can describe it. It was gluttural. It was almost, and at the end of this particular passage, it sounded almost like an animal brain. The voice kind of drifted into an animal gurgling or braying. And then at the end of that, a really loud crash came, like something fell, like rafters or something had fallen through the house or something. A really loud crash. This went on for like 15 or 20 seconds, I would estimate. And so universally, me and my roommate met in the hall and said, "Did you hear that?" He said, "Yeah, I heard that." So we spent about 3 hours combing the entire house and the attic that night. We found nothing. And what was interesting about this is it happened more than once. It happened a couple other times after that, almost in the same kind of manner in the old farmhouse. One particular night, we had a party, a Halloween party over there. We even called it, I think we called it the Harvest Ball. And we had our coworkers out there for a costume party. And the house, it had a historic past. I remember the old farmhouse in Georgia did, of that apparently a person had an alcohol problem years later there, and died in the house, and that's what we heard was the historic correlation. And the house seemed to react violent if you were having a party there. Right. And it seemed like that particular night we started noticing things. The house would be much more active and seemed to almost rebel if we did that. But this one particular Halloween party we had there one night, everybody, about 25 people, were in the house in the great room of the house on the first floor, big hardwood floors, high ceilings, and a window pane just exploded for no reason in the house. Well, of course, everybody was scared, and the 25 people cleared out and left. It didn't take them long to shut down the party that particular night. But those are the kinds of things that kept happening in the house. And, of course, we got so used to the pictures on the wall being askewed and changed around, or objects falling off from dressers, sometimes I just wouldn't bother to put them back for a day or two. So at the end of the summer, okay, here we go. So the end of the summer, we go turn our keys in, and it's the end of our temporary appointment as park rangers. We work at Lake Hartwell. And the lady, the realtor, comes back and said, "I know you guys would be back." And I said, "How come?" She says, "Well, nobody can live in this house. They say it's haunted." So there you go.
That's a great story, RG. And I think we're going to get a caller here in just a second.
Sure.
Someone wanted to call in and ask a few questions. So let's. I don't want to get anything until they do. So let me kind of give them the okay in the chat room. That way, because I know the audio has a little bit of a delay to it. So that way they know they can go and call in. We don't have to just sit here and ramble on. So
right.
But that was a good story.
Yeah, I'll tell folks if they want to come into the Wilkesboro area, the Wilkesboros, it's really a nice area. It's really being known now. Some people say from shine to wine because it did have the correlation of being moonshine country years ago, and a lot of the stock car racers like Benny Parsons and Junior Johnson cut their teeth riding the back roads of Wilkes County. So it kind of became one of the areas where the NASCAR track in the late 90s, of course, the NASCAR track at North Wilkesboro was bought out and it shut down. But the area today has kind of turned into vineyard country and wine growing. So what once was moonshine country is now a kind of wine growing area. It's a great area to take vineyard tours. There's like 30 vineyards in less than an hour drive from my house. I live in Elkin, North Carolina, so that's an indication of how big the vineyard industry has done here.
Right. All right, here we go. We've got a caller from 973. Are you there?
Yes.
Hey,
Jeremiah, Don, how are you?
Hey, Don, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I just want to say one thing real quick. Hey, Jeremiah, do you know of any good magazine that deals with the supernatural and mysteries that might be coming out sometime in the fall or late summer?
I have heard that Mysteries Magazine will be out, so subscribe today.
Why, Jeremiah, how much is the subscription to this Mysteries Magazine?
It varies. So best thing to do is go to the web store. shadowsinthedarkradio.com. But thank you, Don, for the plug.
No problem. That sounds like a wonderful deal to me. I'm going to get mine tonight.
Hey, I was wondering. I wonder if was this a spotter? Because I mean, I'm a banjo player, and so what I do is plug people in the audience when I'm playing somewhere with the Bluegrass Act. I'll have plant people in the audience out there. Hey, turn the banjo up. I'll have fans out there, and everybody in the band says, "Hey, you got another spotter out there. I know how you operate."
No, Don actually did call in with a question, so
Great.
I seriously did. Mr. Absher, first of all, thank you so much for being on tonight. I'm really enjoying it.
Thanks, I appreciate it, Bob. Yeah, 973 sounds like you might be over in Wilkes County.
No, actually, I'm up in New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a different 973 area, but hey, nice talking to you, Bob.
Thanks.
If you get venture down this way, be sure and check out our ghost haunts there in Wilkes County, North Carolina.
Will do, definitely. I just wanted to ask real quick. I had been telling Jeremiah and a couple other guys that hang out with Shadows in the Dark know that I had been working on a couple of history books, like local history books.
Yeah.
And I was curious if I could kind of do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions about the writing?
Sure, go right ahead.
How long did it take you to actually do the initial research and manuscript of it together?
Okay, it's an area that I really like, and I collected and wrote the outline to the ghost tours. I've sort of developed that down here, so I kind of had it upstairs, so to speak. So for me, when I sat down with a pen, and it seems like I always write better early in the morning for some reason. Everybody has a time of day that's better for them. And I would sit down and I'd make the notes, and I'd come back to it, and then I would leave it. So I would just write when it felt good. I would pick up the PC and start typing away, and then I'd be down in the car and I had to write some notes and pull over to the side of the road or something. But I would just kind of do it like that, and I kind of let it flow. But I would, in those subjects that I'm excited about and knowledgeable at, it tends to come easy. And take that information, and I would ask myself this question, say, how would you like to communicate or tell that story to somebody if you were on the other side? So I kind of used that, and it seemed to flow pretty easily once I got into it.
Right. Were there ever times, like, as you were writing the book, that it just kind of got a little bit overwhelming? Because, if I may, I don't want to sound like I'm stealing the thunder, but I was working on a book about a local murder that happened here in New Jersey, and the thing is that I found old newspaper accounts of the murder and just a few odds and ends here and there of the family that was involved with it. But it wasn't like I was able to write anything about, like, say, like John Adams, you know, who has, like, entire, literally, universities dedicated to his papers. Same thing with Thomas Jefferson. When you were doing the research, did it ever get frustrating for you? If I may?
Yeah, and in fact, talking about Tom Dooley, that's one of those murder mystery situations because there are arguments and debates on who did it, that kind of thing. But I did play on a little of that in there, and I presented some of those. But you're exactly right, because sometimes you can chase it like chasing squirrel chasing the tail around and around. But I kind of use it from the standpoint of trying to get people kind of interested in that particular storyline. I would use the debate and point out a couple of the theories, and then kind of leave it for them to investigate further and find the answer themselves, the reader. So yeah, but I was hit with some of those perplexions too when I was doing the writing. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Right, because one of the things that I found the most frustrating was of the murderer. They caught the murderer, and even when they did the trial was just basically, if you were lucky, and like I was able to find the old. I was able to find the judgment book that was recorded from 1850, and it looked like an old composition book that you would have back when you were in grade school, and more or less you have to write a 3-page journal, and that was all the information. It's not like, say, like if you wanted to write a book strictly about like the O.J. trial.
Oh yeah.
Like thick transcript of everybody's argument. I mean, pretty much everything that you found was just this person got up there, said he saw the guy, that was it. This person got up, said he saw the guy. Whereas now when you want a transcript, you'd actually have the person say, I saw him with the glove, clear his throat, scratch his head. And, and like it gets so minute. And when you were doing the Tom Doolett, his story, were you able to find the trial judgments about that?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I used the court records to play off of. In fact, talking about Tom Dooley, my family, my wife, and my stepson, we were all on the Tom Dooley show, Outdoor Drama, here, since I'm in the Tom Dooley subject the last 3 weeks. And when that writer was working on that show, the playwright's actually the director of the show a few years ago. Her name is Karen Reynolds, and you can find that you can do a search on that online and pull that right up. But what she did, she took the time and place of the period right after the Civil War and tried to paint a picture of what was happening there, and included when you get over in the part of the mystery, the whodunit factors. She would include some suspicion in her writing of that, and not actually solve it, but leave you the reader, or in fact the audience, watching the play, with the impression of, hey, was this possible? Is this possible? So those are good scenarios because people liked to play with that, the possibility of who did it in their heads. I found out, and I sort of did that a little bit with the Tom Dooley part of my book too, and then of course I talked about the ghost stories were out there. But yeah, it's that ongoing question of who did it, and I believe that the reader is compelled to try to play with that, and so anything that you can do to help them along with that. Yeah, and I certainly use the court records quite a bit. That's what I use quite a bit to play off of that.
Right. Were you amazed at how little there were with the court records, like, again, compared to something like what you see today? Like, again,
oh yeah,
yeah.
In the 19th century, you're not going to have as thorough of set of anything that you would today. Of course, everything now is just digital recorders, and back in those days it was all handwritten. Sometimes if you're looking at original transcripts, which I was, as you pointed out, it's hard to read that stuff.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrible. I mean, if I may, real quick, I don't mean to go off on a complete tangent, but my wife got me John Adams, the miniseries based on the David McCullough book.
Yeah, John Adams is awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And they had a whole section in there dedicated, a documentary on how David McCullough wrote. And when he got in there and he said, let me show you the paperwork I had to work with John Adams' papers. They walked into a building that looked like it was basically the size of the Wilkes Museum. I saw a picture of that. And they had like about 3 or 4 rooms dedicated to all of his writings. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, it's taken me 4 years to do this one book about this one cotton picking murder. And David McCullough has all of that stuff right there. At that moment, I didn't like David McCullough very much. And it got really frustrating. Well, listen, I think I've taken up enough of your time. Jeremiah, thank you very much for letting me call in. And don't forget Mysteries Magazine. And thanks again, Mr. Absher.
Thanks, Bob. Good talking with you. Good luck on your book.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Don. All right, there we go. Don from New Jersey. Some good questions there.
I'm sorry, it's Don. I'm misunderstood.
Yeah, Don. Okay. But, some good questions there. And then, RJ, I want to follow up. I got a couple questions from the chat room here as well. One coming from Knock, kind of back to the story you told us about the farmhouse. And he was asking a question about the pictures and wanted to know if you'd ever kind of messed around and, say, took the pictures and made them crooked and then, say, the next day they were straight instead of the opposite where you say that, they would be crooked the following day.
Well, yeah, I did actually do a little of what you're talking about there, and when we did that, they actually got worse.
Oh.
So if somebody that definitely, it seemed like to be some kind of entity that did not like for us to have order, based on the way that it's as if we almost felt like they weren't happy with our housekeeping practices or whatever,
right?
And they were going to make an example out of it, and hopefully we would get they would disrupt us and we'd leave. That's kind of the way I felt, and of course based on what the realtors told us, it seemed like that's the track record that the house had. People would stay in the house a month or so, and then they thought the house was haunted, and then they could turn their keys in.
That is great. Now, the other question I have is from Crystal, and I got to scroll up a little bit to catch this one. And her question is kind of asking, how do you sort out the truth from various stories? What's kind of your process of handling that and figuring out what the truth is in something you're researching?
Well, there's different kinds of works out there. My book was a collection of ghost stories, but then I also included the historical background related to the stories. And what some people do works now known as a historic novel. Historic novel basically puts characters in place and situations and writes between the lines of a historic event. So some people, that's a different kind of book or style that you can do. And my particular area was a collection of ghost stories, but then I put the historically related information in there that I thought would give the stories extra glue and significance, and create more of that sense of wonder. Could this be that kind of thing? So I approached my book from that standpoint, and I presented the possibility, and I let the audience or the reader kind of lead them to ask that question. Hey, could this really be? And that to me is the fun part was the fun part of this project.
Right, yeah, and something we do focus on the show here too. Leave it up to the listener to make the decision. But I do want to know, what are your thoughts about some of these hauntings? What do you believe is behind them? What's your theories of ghosts?
Well, and then of course, other writers have talked about interactive, experiences, those which are repetitive, as opposed to those that may be more reactive. Mm-hmm. What I've discovered is that based on the fact that there have been advances in science with recording of instrumentation, and I think I'm a regular viewer of Ghost Hunters International and TAPS and those shows. I watch those on Wednesday nights, and a lot of viewers I think do probably as well. But the fact that instrumentation, the age of instrumentation, has now allowed us to record things that were basically just theories. And if we EVPs, if you're actually recording something as a sound, something is creating that. Now, in this age of science, and here's my theory, is that, this is what I think, is that, is it possible for a pattern, a vortex of energy, that is not yet been able to be recorded or explained through some kind of method of science, to actually record a sound, or maybe even a visual, such as a photograph, even a motion photograph, and replay that at some time and place later in history, based on the transfer of energy field that we can't yet explain. And I think that's possible. And also in connected to the spirit world, I'm not saying it's just all scientific. The possibility of persons hung between life and death, in some sort of a state, being able to come back and have interface with living people, is a possibility. And even people in the clergy many people will tell you that is the case, or they feel that's also possible. So a couple of different ways there to think about, and I examine these a little bit in the book, on my ghost book as well, because I feel like everything has been explained from science from the standpoint that could be, and not all is explainable within the realm of science. So there's at least two ways to kind of look at that, two different schools of thought there.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is a field that is full of theories. Unfortunately, nothing is solid, and that is one of the issues we have to deal with, and I think it's always interesting to hear what everybody thinks is happening. What a ghost is, or where it's coming from, and then of course you get into the residual, the intelligent hauntings. And it's very, very interesting stuff. And kind of on those lines, we've mentioned it a few times, but let's get a little bit into detail about it. October the 23rd to the 25th, there will be a paranormal conference in Wilkesboro, North Carolina.
Yes. And Scott Nicholson, who is working very hard on this, has done a fantastic job at putting all this together. They've got the hotels lined up. He's got a website out there. You and I are both going to be there as speakers and participants, and we'll actually be doing ghost tours through the town, candlelight ghost tours that weekend as well. And there will be ghost investigations. There'll be panels and workshop breakout sessions, and so it should be a really fine event. And you can basically go to the website of Paranormal Computer Conference and find it.
Right. It's website is hauntedcomputer.com.
Hauntedcomputer.com. That's
yes,
it, yeah.
Yes, hauntedcomputer.com. I think tickets are on sale right now. Now, where are they going to be doing the speaking at?
Well, the Holiday Inn Express is the principal hotel. They'll have a meeting room there, and then we'll also probably have some breakout haunts that will be downtown at many of the ghost sites down there, the buildings such as the Smithy House, or the Smithy Hotel, which was built in 1881, the Robert Cleveland House, built in 1779, and the Old Wilkes Jail, which was built in 1859, in addition to the Brown Coles House and adjacent slave quarters that I was talking about, which was built in the 1830s. All those buildings are old historic buildings with a lot of history and with a lot of intrigue.
Mm-hmm. Now, what are some of the places that anybody who's going can expect to get the opportunity to do a ghost hunt in?
Oh, okay. Well, the Smithy Hotel, I know Scott is lining up some ghost haunts there in the Smithy Hotel, the Old Wilkes Jail, and of course the Cleveland House and the Brown Coles House and slave quarters. In addition to that, we'll have the town cemetery is open 24/7. So there's going to be some really good opportunities to do the haunts there. And I think I was talking to Karen Reynolds there at Benton Hall. Hopefully, if we do a conference again in the spring, that we perhaps can get over to Benton Hall, which has also got a lot of stories over in North Wilkesboro. It's now used. It's an old schoolhouse building, a large facility that's now used for doing plays in.
Right, and now I'm looking here at the website just so people will know. It's the 3-day early registration is $55. So if you can, so what is this? You have to register by September 23rd, 2009. Of course. So that's 3 days. You get 3 days at the conference. It goes up to $65 if made at the door. I think it says, or no, made at the door on Friday, it's $70, $65 if after September the 23rd. And if you only want to attend one day, it's only $35. So it's actually a very reasonably priced conference as well.
Yeah, I think you get a lot out of it. And those folks that are online and listening tonight that are new, that'll give you an excellent introduction to what ghost hunting is all about, and I think it'll be a great experience with a lot of networking, as you were talking about. Networking is to get to meet a lot of other people with common interests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are going to be some great people there speaking. Of course, like we said, yourself will be speaking, obviously, as an expert on the history and haunts of Wilkesboro. And I'll be there. You can't miss that. Anywhere Jeremiah Greer is, you got to attend. That's a given, right? So.
Yeah, and I love panel discussions, and I understand there's going to be some of that. I love the opportunity just to hear other people's experiences and to trade stories. So I think all of that's going to be pretty awesome. And you're going to be in an area that's really beautiful, downtown Wilkesboro. I think you'll enjoy it if you come down for the weekend. It's excellent. The fall colors are primo here in the Brushy Mountains at that time of year, too.
Right. Now, also in attendance will be the Paranormal Scene Investigators. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to meet them, RG. Great group.
Yeah, I understand that, and so I'm looking forward to that. that myself.
So I see that they're on the bill. Jonathan Watts of After Twilight Radio is on the bill, and that's all I see he has listed right now. But from my understanding, there are going to be more than that.
Right. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time, and this is, if anyone attended the Green Park Inn Paranormal Conference, it's basically the same thing, but we've, Scott has moved it to Wilkesboro, which I think personally is a great choice, because, you have a lot of stuff going on in that area, and this is going to be an opportunity to see that, and a town that is full of history.
Yeah, we're easy to access because you come in on north-south, come in on Interstate 77, east-west, U.S. Highway 421, good roads in and out, excellent restaurants in town, and really a lot of historic ambiance downtown. And for those that want to drift out for a wine tour or something like that, there's a lot of those opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a blast there, so if anybody definitely gets the opportunity to come down there, I'm sure you'll go into more detail about some of the hauntings of Wilkesboro while we're there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty special to actually go and stand in a jail cell. Some of these infamous characters like Tom Dooley were in, and that's pretty neat. I think it's pretty neat to actually be at the location where the legends are born and historic events actually happen.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I wanted to get into. Did you do a lot of research on the Green Park Inn?
Well, that kind of came after the fact. I did the area ghost hunting first, and then I went back and reconnaissance did the information on it later. But then I've gone back even after I've written my book, and I've talked to a number of folks that have had some experiences up at Green Park Inn. Some of the rooms, especially, are targeted for. I can't remember the room number right off the bat, but there's one particular room number that they really focus on it up there. But you were up there last year for last year's conference, weren't you?
Yeah, 318 is where the lady hung herself. The bride that was left at the altar, as the story goes. I can't remember her name. I'm thinking like Laura Green or something.
Right.
So,
but yeah, room 38. That's it, room 318. Yeah, and but it's a really beautiful area because you're up there over 4,000 feet in elevation, and you're in the high country. But the whole area of the Yadkin Valley is really pretty. It's really pretty down there around Fort Defiance, which is the home place of William Lenore down in Happy Valley in Caldwell County. That's just a really treasure down there. Some of the stories I went on down into the Elkin area as well. But the whole Yadkin Valley is an excellent stream to canoe. We've got mountain bike trails down at W. Carscott Lake that are par excellence for people that want to come and camp. Camping is very good there at Carscott Reservoir. It's got exceptional campgrounds, and you can go to that website, just do a search on W. Carscott for camping. So those that want to camp for the paranormal conference might be enticed to camp in a very beautiful location. Go over to Carscott Lake, one of their campgrounds.
Now, what about Caldwell County, more specifically the the Lenore area, which is more or less where I grew up. Like I said, I grew up in Kings Creek, so if we did anything, we went to Lenore, obviously. What kind of stories did you get any out of there?
Yeah, well, in fact, William Lenore, which Lenore is named after, was also in the Revolutionary War at Kings Mountain. He was under this infamous Colonel Benjamin Cleveland as well, and he was in his company, another captain. And he became, after the Revolutionary War, an important statesman. He was like the first president of the University of North Carolina college system, William Lenore was. He served in the state legislature. He probably is Western North Carolina's equivalent to Thomas Jefferson in that he was a thinker and a designer. And he built the house, which is still standing, the Colonial House, which is open for the public to come by and visit, called Fort Defiance. And the house it's got more original artifacts than places like percentage-wise than Mount Vernon or Monticello.
Oh, wow.
But that particular site also has some paranormal stories that are pretty good. So it's a good site there in your old stomping grounds of Lenore.
Yes, the good old Lenore.
That's also where the twin poplars tree is that you can visit down that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then just south of there, when you cross the Wilkes County line, you get into Tom Dooley country.
Yes.
And you can actually tour. You can actually go visit the gravesides of Tom Dooley, Laura Foster, and Ann Melton from the infamous love triangle. And you can actually drive to the points where the murder took place and the various aspects of the story unfolded. And I've actually do a tour down there. Did an auto tour for the Corps of Engineers. It's an outreach project in which we guide people through that area down there. So I do the Tom Dooley tours as well.
Now, is it at Tom Dooley's grave that the reportings of a lady in white appears?
Yes. There's a couple of stories down the road that Tom Dooley, a couple of them are in my book, that relate to the Tom Dooley story. And apparently a girl who was a young lady that was also interested in Tom Dooley, after he had passed away, was grieving his loss and left a party that night on horseback and decided to ride by his grave, and a horse became startled, reportedly from Tom Dooley's ghost, and the horse became startled, and the lady was thrown off, had a head injury, and did not make it. And that story is one connected to the haunts there, and people reportedly seeing that lady in that particular area after she is thrown from the horse, supposedly laying there next to the grave of Tom Dooley. So that's one story that you get down there.
Mm-hmm. Now, somebody made a comment, about the love triangle. Now, and the reason why you call it that, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you mark their graves on the map, it makes a triangle, correct?
It does, and it's really strange. It makes a fairly uniform-looking triangle. If you can actually go up and GPS the sites, I did this, and pull them up and look at them, and it makes a free uniform triangle. Fairly close, and with the distances being about equivalent from one location roughly equivalent from one location to the other.
Right.
And you can actually visit the site driving down the road there that parallels where the actual murder took place, where the knife was driven home, so to speak, with Laura Foster in a little location there called the Bates Place, and then she was actually taken down a stream, I guess, to defray the or to diffuse the scent or whatever. Somebody carried her down a stream so dogs couldn't pick the scent up, and about 500 yards from that site, and was buried in a shallow grave temporarily until the search party found her and moved her to the more suitable permanent grave location. So all those things you can actually visit. It's kind of neat to go back and ask that question, who done it, that kind of thing, and visit the different sites there and play that out in your thinking. It's kind of fun to do that. I still do it all the time.
Now, for those who may make the trip to see the graves of Tom Dooley and Melton and Laura Foster, because it's a big part of history. It's an amazing place to see. Now, Tom Dooley's is on private land, correct?
Yeah, it is. And we work with the landowner to eventually visit those sites. We have to let them know up front, since it is on private land. That's correct. But during the conference, we can actually, I'm going to get with Scott on this. It's a great idea. Since we're talking about it on the phone, we could offer a tour out there at some point for those folks that want to visit the site.
Yeah, I want to visit them myself. I never have, and I grew up in the area, and I'm so ashamed to say I've never have visited their graves.
I'll have to arrange for that. We'll get you out there because I think you'd enjoy that.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, so if you do, if anyone out there listening decides to make the trip to Tom Dooley's grave, please make sure you have permission because it is on private land. And then, I know that they're trying to kind of protect it because people have chipped away at it.
Yeah, obviously people, some souvenir hunters and that kind of thing, have shown disrespect at a grave and taken chunks of a headstone out. Mm-hmm. And there's been a problem with that kind of thing. And yeah, what we do is we recommend people just drive the road and the route, and without, of course, which is fine. You can do that and pass through the location, and of course, have to get permission of the landowners to actually to go to some of those sites.
Yeah, definitely. Well, RG, we are pretty much out of time here, and I want to say how much it was a pleasure to have you back on the show and to talk about the hauntings that y'all have around the Yadkin Valley area there. And before you leave us, one more time, let us know, where they can pick up the book and the website they can check out to find out more about the history of Wilkesboro and what goes on there.
Okay, well, great. I would, for the history and information on the ghost tours, WilkesHeritageMuseum.com. That's WilkesHeritageMuseum.com is an excellent site to visit. And you can see when you're in the area, swing by and check the museum out in Wilkesboro. It's got a really good recap of all the history we've talked about tonight. Secondly, the book can be found. The Ghost of the Yadkin Valley can be found through History Press out of Charleston, South Carolina, and just do a quick search on that, and you'll pull it right up. Or you can go on Amazon.com and do a search for a Ghost of the Yadkin Valley, and it'll pull it right up. So there's a couple of ways to get the book. And don't forget the Haunted Computer Paranormal Conference, October 23rd, 25th in downtown Wilkesboro.
Yes, it's going to be great. And RG, again, it was a pleasure having you on. I really appreciate you making the time to join us tonight. Awesome.
Hey, I really enjoyed it. Everybody out in the listening audience, thanks for being a part of it as well.
All right. Well, RG, hang on the line. Don't hang up on me. So while I close out the show here, all right?
Sure.
All right. Well, everyone, that was R.G. Absher. Do check out the book. He puts a lot of research into this. It's very, very interesting stuff. So make sure to check that. And of course, the Wilkesboro Paranormal Conference, October 23rd through the 25th. I'm going to be there, so what other reason do you need to attend? No, just kidding. Definitely, it's going to be a great time, so make sure to check that out. Scott does a great job of putting together some conferences, so I look forward to seeing you there. Now, this Thursday, we will have Patrick Burns on. That is 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time this coming Thursday. That should be interesting. Of course, Patrick Burns from the Court TV, True TV Haunted Evidence series, so that's going to be a lot of fun. After that, I will be on vacation. We will have to throw up some rebroadcasts. I tell you what, I'm going to see. We need to get a guest host so we can run live every Sunday and Thursday. If I'm away, we can have a guest host in here. You know what? I think I'm going to work on that, and maybe we'll find somebody to do that. I think that would be a lot of fun, to be honest. And maybe have a couple hosts here and there. Obviously, I don't take a lot of breaks from the show because, quite frankly, I enjoy it. But I tell you, I think it would be kind of nice if we could run live every Thursday and Sunday, and we don't have to play so many rebroadcasts if I have to be out of town. But I will be out of town after this coming Thursday's show. So, just so you know what's coming up. But again, keep your eye on the website. We're adding more and more content. If you haven't signed up for the show reminders, please do so. We really want to keep expanding. So can't tell you how much we appreciate your support. But I tell you what, everyone, and also I can't tell you how much I appreciate you showing up tonight. So again, thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat room. If you didn't join us in the chat room, but you still listen live, we appreciate that. And of course, the archive listeners as well. And of course, thanks to R.G. Absher for joining us and sharing those ghost stories of the Yadkin Valley area. So a lot of fun. Well, good night, everybody. This has been Shadows in the Dark, where the darkness is illuminated.
Shadows in the dark.